Are you guys familiar with that moment when you find the one thing you've been wanting to buy for a very long time? You've set aside the money, you can make the purchase, but it's a big one. So, like, your hands start getting sweaty, your heart starts racing, like, the adrenaline is at an all time high. There's nothing to worry about. You have the money, just click buy, and then you click it. You click buy. And then there's that moment of silence where like the excitement ramps up, like everything around you is just like, and after that whole dramatic sequence, you remember that you have to wait for shipping. And that sucks. That was me last week, actually. And the one thing that I bought that caused that whole thing is here. So let's go get it. I can't wait any longer. Come on, let's go grab that. So before we get into the absolute goodness that is in this box, let me take you guys back 4 years ago when I first created my capt.rikki EDC account on Instagram. Now, when I started that account, I didn't really know anything about pocket knives. I started that account because I was inspired by Peter McKinnon, and during the pandemic, I wanted a hobby that involved more photography. So I created that account, and one of the first pocket knives that I saw everywhere was the CRKT Squid by Lucas Burnley. And it made me think, okay, I need that knife. Because buying that knife didn't feel like just a regular knife purchase. It felt like I was buying into something bigger. Like there was like this movement going on right now in the EDC community with the CRKT Squid. So 4 years ago, I did that. I bought a CRKT Squid, and that's kind of what started this whole thing that I'm in now. That was the knife that I bought because of the EDC community, so that felt special. So here it is, the CRKT Squid. Now, 4 years ago, this knife cost me $20. 4-year-old me felt like $20 for a pocket knife was a pretty big investment. Like, what if I didn't like it? What if it didn't cut well? There was just a lot of variables. I didn't know about the secondary market. I was just learning about pocket knives, but I'm so glad I bought this knife because not only is it just a phenomenal pocket knife for $20, like look how razor sharp that thing is. It's just a phenomenal everyday carry, and that is exactly what I was trying to learn. I was trying to understand what tools are out there that I have been missing out on that not only were great for your daily tasks, but had a great story attached to them. So my CRKT Squid will always hold that sentimental value as the first knife that I ever bought in the EDC community. And that's just really special to me. What was your inspiration for the Squid? Because I think it was a custom at first, right? Or am I wrong?
Yeah. No, you're right. It was a custom at first. I was trying to think of what year I brought it out. It's probably 2010 or earlier, somewhere right in there. The goal with the Squid was kind of to buck what I was seeing in like the tactical market was all of these like really like hyper aggressive, like big chunky designs. And I just thought it would be fun to do something different, you know? What's interesting for me is like it worked out really well from a production standpoint because people always say like, oh, the Squid is so cute.
Yeah.
That's actually like I could not have hoped for anything better.
Right.
Right? Like on an end cap, it's like a non-threatening, super functional tool. And so that was really the goal. It was like something doesn't have to look aggressive to be aggressive. It doesn't have to look aggressive to be functional. And so it was kind of just an exercise in like, can I make something that is really like minimal and compact, but like still keep all of this like kind of like tough DNA?
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's funny you say it, the thing about it being cute, because recently CRKT sent me a Squid Compact, and I opened it up, and my fiance is not a knife woman at all. Like, she thinks this whole hobby is funny, and she went to Blade Show and like loved it. But I opened up that Squid Compact, and she's like, "I'm gonna take that." She's like, "I want that one."
Dude, that's like the goal for me.
Yeah.
Right? It's literally just being able to find different attachment points. And it's so easy to become dogmatic about like what your style is or like what what the genre of the market that's like popular is.
Right.
Like sometimes you just have to have fun with it.
Hey, you had one of these, right?
Very briefly.
What'd you think? 4 years ago, when this knife came out.
A little bit small for my hands. Otherwise, I think it's a good value. Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I do like small knives. It's just that one in my hand felt a little odd. Like it didn't. It's just not quite enough. You know, I do like small knives. I carry. In fact, I got a small knife in my pocket. But it fits. It fills the hand a little better.
Fair
That
enough.
was my biggest thing. It's like because I think it's because it's so thin.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, and that was the other thing, the lockup. I think mine had a little bit of lock stick, but it's tough. That it's got a really tough lock bar for such a small knife. It being a frame lock and steel.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Cool.
I do remember that.
All right, well, give it back to me because you don't like it. Although my very first squid held a ton of sentimental value, I did end up giving it away. My younger cousin needed a knife, and it just felt right for me, the older cousin, to give him a knife that I fell in love with and I trusted, and that way he can go and have his own history with it. And since then, I haven't really bought a Lucas Burnley design. There was nothing that really caught my eye in the production world that I felt like I needed to have it as much as a CRKT squid. But that all changes today, because in this box is my very first custom Lucas Burnley knife. I have been so excited to share this with you guys. Let's crack it open. Real quick interjection. This is something that I bought in the secondary. This is stuff that normally doesn't come in packages, but thanks, Mike. This is great. A lot of your designs have elements of like the neo-Japanese, like post-tactical elements to it. This whole thing is about this knife. Like, this is my very first custom knife. And when I first looked at this, I was like, wow, I haven't owned anything like this in years. And it was just interesting that this caught my eye. What is it about that neo-Japanese post-tactical elements that like inspired you? Like, how has this become a thing that's like recognizable of your brand, of your style?
I think initially some of the like the custom knives that caught my eye were these Japanese like cord wrapped pieces. They were really hot, kind of in the tactical market, and like, you know, I mean, around that time, like, you're seeing like cool pieces by like Wally Hayes, and like, I think the knife that I used to actually figure out how to do the wrap might have been by a maker named Barry Dawson.
Okay.
And I remember just like sitting and like staring at it for hours. And this is like, I mean, like, yeah, there's internet, but it's not like you can't just go on YouTube and find all the tutorials for it. Like this, right. I'm like just figuring this out and like staring at it and just like experimenting. I think the original attachment to like the Japanese style was the duality of form and function. Right. So like you'll always hear like form, like function before form, and like, you know, or form follows function. With Japanese tools, weapons, like etc., like I don't think that exists. I think that they're like super harmonious, regardless of the level of like finish. Right. So you'll see some like really simple woodworking tools, but they're aesthetically like they're very, very pleasing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Right?
And then you will see a weapon of war, like a sword or you know, a spear point or arrow tip or something like that, and it has that same level. Like there is no need for it to be like as beautiful and refined as it is.
Yeah, but they take pride in that.
Other than pure just like pride in what you're producing.
Absolutely.
So I think that's that attachment. Here it is, guys, my very first Lucas Burnley custom. Now, this knife cost me $835. Technically, not the full $800 was paid because I traded a knife and then plus some cash, but
the seller had it listed for $835. And if you're a viewer of my channel who's maybe not familiar with pocket knives, you're probably thinking, why the hell did you pay $835 for this knife? It cuts just like any other knife, and the price point seems completely outrageous. Well, here's the thing. Knives like these have a sort of different meaning for me personally. I would have paid the full amount for this knife, and that is because it is a custom knife made by Lucas Burnley. So he made this knife from beginning to end, and there are tons of details in here that required him to spend a lot of time making that knife, and that has a lot of value on its own. In my research of trying to learn more about the Rimaguru, I looked up 24K gold or something like that, and a post popped up where you were talking about you experimenting with the 23 gold leaf on there.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Were you just like, you know what, I want to make this and let's go for it?
I think for me, like there's a lot of crossovers in technique, right? And one thing I really like doing is kind of utilizing finishes that might be or materials that might be like considered like, I don't know, like luxury, almost, or like really like you're thinking like gold, right? Like this is not in like an EDC piece,
right?
Okay, but I think that applied tastefully and in like a way that you can, like obviously for like an EDC piece, like you have to have some eye on like the cost,
right?
You can't just like go wild, right? Like gold leaf is a method of doing that where it's not intrinsically super expensive.
Yeah.
But it is gold. It's pure gold.
Right.
And so that knife that you have specifically actually, I think, ties in a couple of concepts. Okay. So the gold is really refined. Okay. The finish on that blade is actually something that I didn't do for years and years. And what that is it's only ground to 120 grit.
Oh, wow.
So I spent years refining my grinds up to like these really highly finished, like no surface marks. And what I realized was that aesthetically, depending on the piece, a lot of times, like I actually really liked this like more like coarse, organic look.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that knife is that combination of like what would be considered like a really basic, like tool level working blade grind and finish,
right,
mixed with techniques that would be like pulled from like jewelry,
yeah,
you know, or and then the other part of that one is the scales underneath the wrap are there. It's shosugiban, which is basically like charred wood. They use it for like building baby like in Japanese. You'll see it like on like siding for houses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was just like, you know, it was experimenting to like create texture without using like the standard, like a lot of times I use like ray skin or, you know, shark skin, stuff like that.
Lucas has been at this for over 20 years. So when you're buying a knife from Lucas, you're not buying just a physical item. You're paying for the hours spent in his shop, designing it, putting it together, experimenting. You're paying for the creative genius that is going on in his brain. This whole thing started with a production squid that Lucas designed. And now I'm here with a design that he made with his own hands in his shop. And that is just something that is very special. It feels like I've come full circle in my journey with this fixed blade. And that's why the price point doesn't matter to me, because this is now a piece that is going to hold a ton of sentimental value. Again, this whole thing is about having these tools having more than just it's more than just a tool for me, right? Like for me, I like to buy knives with stories. I like to learn. I like to be fully invested in the tools that I'm carrying. My question to you is, what are some of your most sentimental knives? Like whether it's things that you've made, things that you were gifted, that you bought, what are some of those pieces for you?
There's things that have been gifted to me by like non-knife friends.
Yeah.
That are super meaningful, right? And then there are knives that have been gifted to me by makers. And then there are things that I've tracked down because of my attachment maybe to a maker or like to a genre, like almost paying respects in like a way.
Oh yeah.
Let me actually. I'm sitting in front of my toolbox. This is a knife by my friend Joe Mangiafico, and I met Joe probably it's either like 5 or 6 years ago when we were living on Cape Cod, and he was making knives. I hired him, and he worked for me for like 2 or 3 years. What I love is check out that handle.
Yeah, that is
So
crazy.
he's like a lifetime fly fisherman,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when I met him, he was making these amazing like trout themed scales
Yeah.
and like super labor intensive, super creative,
Mm-hmm.
and just like really like outside of the box. It's interesting because now you're like seeing that like aesthetic like pop up and like
Yep.
people are like doing it more and more. He was kind of the origin of that. I think the way that he had figured out how to do it
Mm-hmm.
was just the best. It's inefficient. It's difficult.
Right.
And I think that's why why it like looks the way it does. I mean, it's just there's no way to like fake it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that's what amplifies the excitement, for me at least, of custom knives. And I think I'd spoken about it before. Like the fact that I know that you made this in your shop, the amount of time
Right.
that you put into it, the amount of years that you've invested in
Yeah.
creating knives, like that elevates this piece. Like not to say that I don't love my production stuff, but it's
Sure.
just different. Like there's a different thought process that goes into owning, collecting, you as a maker making these pieces that just like takes everything to a 10.
You see like a lot of like judgments around like how things are made or like where things are made or like now like who's the OEM if it's that type of
Yeah.
product.
Right.
And you're like, if you can look at it without a lot of opinion,
Yeah.
and just kind of like accept, like, hey, this is how this is made, and you can make the judgment, like, if you're interested in that or not. But almost, I would say, like, the majority of makers who have years in the industry and like some type of range, like, you can decide to like collect or find pieces from like these really divergent kind of like production and thought process lines.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Which I think it's really fun. Like I love the idea that you could like find a knife from a maker that was like, it's like, okay, this was pre CNC for them.
Mm-hmm.
This is okay, it's all hand done or whatever it is. Or you're like, okay, like this is when this model hit CNC in their shop.
Right.
And like being able to compare, I love stuff like that. This is like another in my special box.
Yeah.
So this knife is a forged piece from one of my mentors, Joe Cordova.
Mm-hmm.
My sister-in-law found this. I went to him to try to figure out when he made this, and he couldn't tell me.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of love that because he's like looking at it. He's like, well, he's like, okay, like that size range. Like I was doing this. He's like, I don't know, like late 80s maybe.
Oh wow.
I'm like, it's so cool that like pieces like will actually like disappear, and that's happened to me now where I'm like, something will pop up, and I'm like, oh man, I forgot that I made that.
When was that made? To me, this is what excites me about the world of EDC and all these tools that we're carrying in our pockets. Production knives give me a certain level of excitement, don't get me wrong, but these custom knives that are handmade by makers, it amplifies it like a megaphone on a rooftop. The excitement is just so much more intense, because you just know that there was a lot of time, thought, effort, and hard work put into this piece. I want to learn what's going on in the shop. I want to know what's going on in a maker's brain when they put a knife together, because the story is what brings more value to the knife itself. And it might be a weird way of thinking, because to some people, a knife is just a knife. And I totally understand that. Like, I think about that way with certain knives as well. But a custom knife just kind of opens up that world for more exploration. Like, think about all the things that someone like Lucas, for example, has seen, and then all those thoughts go into making a piece, a tool that you and I are going to be carrying hopefully for the rest of our lives, right? that stuff is just really, really cool. Anyways, clearly I am beyond hyped with this piece, and it was just really cool to be able to share this moment with you guys. I haven't made a YouTube video in a while, and that's just because creatively, I've been trying to figure out how to make videos that are more exciting to me, and this was just like a really cool moment to share with you guys. 4 years ago, I bought this knife, and that's what started this whole thing, the YouTube channel, my EDC account. So it's become a full circle moment to go from production to now custom, and to share my thoughts behind the sentimental values and the thoughts that go into my knife purchases, the kind of things that inspire me. So it was just cool to share it with you guys. A massive, massive thank you to Lucas for being able to hop on the phone with me to be in this video. That just makes this video that much cooler. He's preparing for a show, so I know time is valuable. So thank you, Lucas, for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you to Michael West, who sold me this knife. If it wasn't for him letting it go, I wouldn't have been able to make this video. And a thank you to you guys for watching. So in the comments down below, let me know what is a knife that holds the most sentimental value to you. Where'd you get it? Who's the maker? What is it that excites you about that maker? Because I'd love to hear about it. Thank you guys again for watching the video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one, hopefully sooner rather than later. See you guys.